This small, picturesque beach lies at the southern end of California's majestic Big Sur coastline. Except for the two-lane highway winding along the bluff, the beach here hasn't changed much for the past 100 years. Perhaps not for the past 1,000 or more. The sands are scoured by winter storms and renewed by spring gales and calm, foggy summers in a yearly process that is played out over and over for eons. Through it all, the beach endures, empty, silent, faithfully guarding the border between land and sea. Empty, that is, until now. The cool autumn air is signaling a change, and it's not just the onset of winter that's coming. They're coming too. It's been a long and perilous journey, but they're almost here. The latest triumphant chapter in one of the greatest comebacks the animal kingdom has ever known. The gulls know it. They wait patiently until finally, they arrive. At this beach, things have changed. Point Piedras Blancas, Spanish for White Rocks, is a low-lying windswept headland jutting out into the Pacific Ocean 5 miles north of the old town of San Simeon near Hearst Castle in San Luis Obispo County. Since 1874, its historic lighthouse has kept watch along these shores. During the 1990s, it's had some new residents to watch over. Residents of the fastest-growing new colony of northern elephant seals ever recorded. The elephant seal has what could only be described as one of the most uniquely adapted lifestyles of any animal on Earth. The haul-out of the first young subadult male in early November marks the very beginning of what will be another incredible breeding season for these long-distance travelers. Throughout the month, large numbers of young adolescent males show up on the shore. These teenagers of the colony will rule the beach for a few weeks during what amounts to a precursor of the true breeding season when the larger bulls arrive. They spend hours testing each other in playful mock battles, which are always a crowd pleaser. These tussles will eventually turn into serious fights for dominance as they grow older and join the mature population. But for now, it's all fun and games, with not much at stake for either the winner or loser. Of course, there's also plenty of time for some good old lounging around. Save for some minor disagreements, the seals all seem to get along fairly well. Towards the end of the month, this tranquil scene will be broken by the arrival of the first testosterone-pumped behemoth with a serious attitude problem, a mature bull. Fresh from a 3 to 4 month feeding trip to the northeastern Pacific, he dwarfs the younger subadults, and he's eager to show them who owns the beach. Sporting the unlikely nose that gives the species its name, these bulls can be over 15 feet long and weigh in at well over 5,000 pounds, making elephant seals the largest member of the pinniped family in the world, the group of mammals that includes all seals, sea lions, and walruses. They share this distinction with their mirror image cousins, the southern elephant seal, who inhabit the waters around Argentina, Chile, and Antarctica. For now, it would appear the younger males could just as soon do without these big beasts on the beach. And sadly, we almost did. Many of the world's marine mammals were hunted to near extinction with the onset of European exploration, and the northern elephant seal was hit particularly hard. While their fur was worthless, the blubber from a single bull elephant seal could yield up to 200 gallons of nearly the highest quality oil available. The tame and clumsy seals that were conveniently hauled out on offshore islands were no match for the sealers' guns, and between 1810 and 1860, they were wiped out. By 1884, the northern elephant seal was thought to be extinct.
For many years, there was concern about whether elephant seals would be able to survive. An animal that has been brought to the brink of extinction by man, where the Smithsonian expedition in the turn of the century found 9 animals at Guadalupe Island. They anticipated that that was all that was left of the elephant seal population that had been hunted for oil. And so they slaughtered 8 of them, anticipating that there was no point in not bringing them back to have for study. Since then, the population has done fabulously well, expanding into all parts of its former range. The population now appears to be in excess of 150,000 and continues to grow.
Current DNA testing has suggested the total population likely bottomed out at somewhere between 30 and 100 individuals. Legally protected since 1922 by both the United States and Mexico, the northern elephant seal population rebounded so well that by the time the Endangered Species Act was passed in 1973, they were never listed as either threatened or endangered. The current population represents a near total recovery that is unprecedented for a large mammal. As winter approaches, the attitude on the beach turns serious. As they arrive throughout December, the bulked-up bulls are ready for the amazing rigors of the competitive breeding season. And it would seem they only have one thing on their mind: to mate with the females. Their methods to achieving that end can be violent. Elephant seals are highly polygamous, and it's size that matters. The males begin to grow their telltale nose around age 4. And by age 8, they are fully mature with a well-developed nose and chest shield. But this is no guarantee of mating success, and it may take several more years and an aggressive attitude to compete with the larger bulls who can live up to 14 years. The nearly constant threatening, vocalizing, and fighting eventually establishes a dominance hierarchy that extends from the highest-ranking bulls down through to the subadults. Each bull knows his place and who he may have to challenge to move up the social ladder, either in or out of the water.
One of the most dramatic aspects of the elephant seal is seeing the territorial bulls in action during the breeding season. It is the pinnacle for the male to become a harem master. The big males, the alpha males as we call them, will remain on the rookery for approximately 3 months without feeding, during which time they'll lose about 30% of their mass. The males take a great deal of chances through their lives. It's only a very small portion of the population that makes it to being, it's perhaps 1 or 2% that become a harem master. The males are under such huge stress during this time, both because of the physical abuse of one on another, as well as due to the long period of time that they are fasting. Life expectancy is much shorter than that of the females. We find that it varies year to year, but probably 45% of the males that we see on the beach as harem master will return the following year.
The seals do not fight to the death. The chest shield and a thick layer of blubber usually protect the seals from injury. The most severe injuries seem to be to the ego. The loser may take a few days off to recuperate before trying his luck again elsewhere. But an unfortunate blow to the head or nose, or an injured eye, if it doesn't heal before the spring migration, may spell doom for an unlucky male. As a result of this and other extreme behavior, studies have shown that only 5 to 10% of male elephant seals survive to prime breeding age, and fewer than 5% ever mate in their lifetimes. With the entire beach full of ill-behaved males, it can be difficult to figure out what they're fighting about. But sometime near the last week in December, the main attraction will finally show up, the first pregnant females. Like the males, the pregnant females arrive slowly, one by one. Returning to give birth on the beach where she herself was likely born, this female may weigh up to 1,500 pounds. She looks puffed up like a balloon and seems to have difficulty moving up the beach. But danger lurks nearby. Subdominant and inexperienced bulls line the shore, eager to seize any opportunity to mate. And even though she's neither receptive to nor able to mate yet, the bulls are a serious threat to her unborn pup. Her goal is to reach a harem, where she can relax a bit, as the alpha male should chase off any would-be intruders. Once in the harem, she'll usually have a few days to lay around before she goes into labor. But soon she'll give birth to a single, wrinkly black pup that weighs about 65 pounds. Labor can be quite variable, but usually only takes about 20 minutes. This female is having a typical tail-first birth. Head-first births are less common. This pup took all of 3 minutes to get pushed out. The first few moments after birth are perhaps the most important for the new pair. The female will swing around, breaking the umbilical cord, and come face to face with her newborn pup. Mother and pup immediately imprint their sound and smell on each other, forming a strong bond that will allow them to identify each other in a noisy, hectic pile of elephant seals. This bonding can be frequently interrupted, as the new mom immediately has to defend her pup from territorial females and the raucous cleanup crew of seagulls feasting on the afterbirth. Within an hour or two, the emphasis will turn to food, and mom will roll over into the nursing position. A female elephant seal's milk is among the richest in the world. Towards the end of the lactation period, it'll reach fat concentrations of over 55% and have the consistency of mayonnaise, proving a tasty treat for sneaky gulls. This allows the pup to gain tremendous amounts of weight during the short 4-week nursing period. They'll put on an astounding 10 pounds a day during this time and weigh over 300 pounds when weaned. The mother is literally transferring her weight to her pup. And the pups will need all this fat in order to survive the 3.5 months it takes until they're ready to forage at sea on their own. This places a lot of demands on a mother to ensure her pup is able to nurse successfully. An experienced seal will fiercely defend her and her pup's private space. This makes it equally important for a mom to keep track of her own pup. It's vital they don't get separated even for a short while. Mom knows it's dangerous out there. If they do get separated, sometimes it's not easy to get reunited. This mother's pup has somehow wandered down the beach, but this time she'll pay the price with a visit from an amorous sneaker bull. The bulls can be an even greater danger to the pups themselves. The pups have very little mobility, and getting run over by a seal 50 times their size can easily be fatal. The bulls go about their business of defending their harems and challenging each other, completely oblivious to the pups or even the other female's existence. Fights erupt frequently, sometimes right in the middle of a harem. Fortunately, the little pups are tough and are usually just a little dazed after such encounters. By the middle of January, there are mature harems up and down the beach, each containing up to 50 females depending on the layout of the beach. Once a harem becomes too large for one alpha bull to handle, to save himself some energy, he'll usually allow another high-ranking bull to maintain a position along the outskirts. This is known as the beta bull, and he serves as the first line of defense against non-dominant bulls known as sneakers that line the water's edge outside the harem. As a reward, the alpha will sometimes let the beta mate with a few of the females. But if push comes to shove, the alpha will let everyone know who's the boss. A sneaker bull's only hope of mating with a female is usually to quietly sneak in while the alpha and beta bulls are occupied. An entertaining strategy, but one that rarely works. The establishment and continual maintenance of this dominance hierarchy seems primitive, but it effectively protects the females and their pups and ensures that only the strongest and most aggressive males will pass on their genes during the mating process. Displaced by the larger bulls and growing numbers of females, the rest of the male elephant seals can be found tucked away by themselves or on peripheral sections of beach known as bachelor pads. Here they continue to pester each other, maintaining their distance and seemingly fighting over nothing. As if harem life wasn't tough enough for the new elephant seal pups already, winter storms far away in the North Pacific are sending powerful swells toward the California coast. In a worst-case scenario, the swell coincides with an extremely high tide. 200 yards offshore, a colony of sea lions scramble to the highest rocks. There's nowhere to go but down. If they survive the fall, there'll be no rest until the waves subside. On the narrower beaches on shore, heavy surges throw the harem into a state of confusion. The pups, especially the younger ones, can't swim, nor can they move very well on land. With each wave, they're in danger of being swept out to sea. The harem shrinks into a noisy, confused ball, mothers and pups piled on top of one another. There's nowhere else to go, and nothing else to do but hope the tide goes out soon. Miraculously, no pups are washed out to sea this day, but the danger won't be over until the harem untangles itself and pups are reunited with their mothers, a painful process that could take several hours. When the panic subsides, this confused mother's pup is dead, having been crushed or suffocated within the harem at the peak of high tide. But considering the danger, the harem was fortunate to escape without greater losses. Soon, life will return to normal. Even though large winter storms pose a serious threat to the colony, most of the beaches on the south side of Point Piedras Blancas are a safe haven that provides plenty of peaceful time to just hang out with Mom. fact, the spectacular success of the entire colony may be tied to just how safe these beaches are for elephant seals. Typical winter storm surf approaches the California coast from the northwest, as do the prevailing winds. The north side of the headland takes the brunt of these forces head-on, but by the time the swells refract around the point, they've lost much of their dangerous energy. The smaller surf, reduced currents, and warmer offshore winds on the lee side of the point result in stable, gently sloping beaches with plenty of calm coves that are ideal places for pups to grow and learn to swim. Of course, there are always exceptions. The danger to elephant seals during El Niño years is from an abnormal storm track that approaches the coast from the southwest. This leaves the beaches vulnerable to a direct hit from nature's fury. Fortunately, that's the exception to the rule, and Piedras Blancas has proven to be a relatively safe place even during El Niño years. No other colony has come close to matching its initial success. Archaeological digs from Native American sites in the area provide few clues as to whether the seals are repopulating a former haul-out site or actually breaking new ground. Predators such as Native Americans, grizzly bears, and cougars likely prevented elephant seals from colonizing accessible beaches on the mainland. The only natural predator left patrolling the beach today is the coyote, and they seem content with picking up scraps rather than attacking healthy pups. While it's unclear whether mainland areas like Piedras Blancas served as breeding sites for elephant seals in the past, one thing's for sure. In late 1990, biologist Brian Hatfield awoke expecting a normal day of sea otter research, only to find 19 young elephant seals hauled out in the small cove just below the lighthouse.
Later that day, I believe it was 25th of November, 1990, there were almost 30 animals, and that fall we had a maximum of almost 200 animals haul out here. We saw animals coming back for the spring molt in 1991, again in the fall of 1991, and then in 1992 we had our first pup born, a single pup. Since then the growth has been phenomenal. It is the fastest growing colony of elephant seals recorded. This last breeding season, 1999, we had about 1,900 pups born. I can only speculate on why they chose this area. It might be due to overcrowding at the main rookeries on the Channel Islands, off Santa Barbara, at Año Nuevo, and at Gorda. Initially, I would have to say that all the breeding rookeries in California probably contributed to the growing seal colony here. And I know that because each colony has a unique color flipper tag applied to the seals. There's green at Año Nuevo, red and yellow on the Channel Islands, and through the years we've seen all those colored tags here. And of course now we see many returning white tag seals, which is the color we use here. We saw our first white tag seal that was born here produce a pup in 1996.
It's now estimated that over 7,000 animals haul out each year at the Piedras Blancas colony. But this growth has not come without its own unique set of problems.
As the colony grows, the seals are moving eastward down the coast and occupying other suitable sandy coves. And as they do that, they get closer to Highway 1 and closer to people along that stretch of coast. And with that, it comes many of the problems that we've seen here with interactions between seals and people. Not only have we had several seals get up onto the highway and hit and killed by vehicles, but we've also had disrespectful people getting way too close and disturbing the seals. I've actually seen people throwing beer cans at seals, and even photographers throwing things at seals to try to get a reaction from a bull or other seal to perhaps get a better picture.
All species of marine mammals are federally protected by law from this type of harassment under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. But the elephant seal's unique and near total lack of fear towards curious humans often puts this law to the test.
One question that comes to mind is, well, are elephant seals, really bothered by people? Well, as long as people don't kill them, they don't ride on their backs, they don't harass them, it doesn't seem to affect them negatively. It can certainly affect people because they'll bite, and unfortunately, every now and then, they aren't easily roped off. I think that the two can live together quite well.
Then the females will come back in May to molt. They come back.
It takes an educated populace to allow that to happen, to overcome our occasional stupidity and youth, to realize, hey, we just need to leave them alone. We can be here and we can watch them successfully, just as backyard bird watchers have been doing for generations. We can do the same thing with these huge, fascinating creatures. And it is a unique opportunity that we in Central California and Southern California have to have them in our own backyard.
Fortunately, the seals at Piedras Blancas are afforded an additional level of protection by having chosen a haulout that's within the boundaries of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary.
The elephant seal colony at Piedras Blancas is special to the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary for a number of different reasons. They both sort of came into being at the same time in the early 1990s. The Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary is the largest and the deepest of our country's 12 national marine sanctuaries. One of the main things that the sanctuary offers is protection from human activities that are known to cause adverse impacts to marine resources. In particular, oil development is off limits in the sanctuary, and the risk from an oil spill that could affect the elephant seal populations is very high. As the sanctuary has grown in awareness and popularity, so has the elephant seal colony. And it's represented initially a very trying challenge for the sanctuary, because part of what we're all about is helping people enjoy the marine environment, things like elephant seals. We want people to appreciate them, but we don't want them to hurt the elephant seals, and we don't want people to get hurt by elephant seals. And yet what we don't want to do is have to run down and write tickets. We don't want to have a punitive, heavy enforcement program. Rather, sanctuaries rely on education as the primary first step to proper enforcement.
The local community has recognized the importance of both the elephant seals and human residents. In an effort to protect both seals and people, while continuing to allow for reasonable levels of human activity, an innovative and effective volunteer docent program was implemented.
They don't eat until they go back to the North Pacific, and they eat mainly squid. Now the females will then breed at about 25 days after giving birth. They'll stop lactation, and then the females take off.
Friends of the Elephant Seal is a pilot program. We have 70 volunteers. They range in age from 18 to in their 80s. A lot of the folks are retirees. Many are students. They're people who love this area. We have a lot of visitors that go right by here on Highway 1. 1 million people a year go to Hearst Castle, and most of them stop here to see the elephant seals. We try to give them as much information as we can. They're very curious about the animals, and a lot of times they're a little too curious, so they get a little too close. We're not enforcers, we're teachers. We don't want to shut the public out of an area like this, because this is a wonderful place to go to the beach. It's a wonderful place to view wildlife. And we feel like we're kind of the interpreters for the area that are allowing the people and the seals to coexist.
Volunteerism, especially volunteers along a coastal or ocean environment, like the Friends of the Elephant Seal, and the service, frankly, that they provide to the public, is invaluable in managing ocean resources, so much more so than managing land-based systems. And part of that is because nobody really owns the ocean. You can't really put a fence up on the shoreline. You can't put a perimeter around a kelp forest. You can't decide where animals come and go. And that whole concept exists when it comes to managing resources and doing education for to the public about those resources. And it's important to have a community that helps support and own the responsibility to manage those resources and to protect the seals, but also to educate the public about why they're so important.
I think that it's just an incredible opportunity for all of us to view these animals in our backyard, to watch their whole life cycle unfold on the beach in front of my eyes is just incredible. And you can just stay out here for hours talking about it and observing these animals. being themselves. They're spectacular. I just can't get enough of it.
Meanwhile, back in the harem, many of the pups that were born in late December or early January are nursing voraciously and are nearing their weaning size. The mothers have lost a lot of weight and are noticeably slender. It won't be long before they'll have to return to sea to feed. But about 4 days before they do leave, they'll come into estrus, when a new egg can become fertilized. This is what the alpha male has been waiting for, and he makes the most of it. It seems like a female is never completely happy about the mating exploits of the bulls, but during estrus, she will put up less of a fight. Sometime in the second half of January, the first weaned pup, now affectionately called a wiener, emerges from the harem. He's so plump he can hardly reach the sand with his flippers, but he's ready for the long 2.5 months ahead where he won't eat a thing and live totally off his baby fat. Around the time the first pups are being weaned, the number of seals on the beach reaches its peak for the breeding season. Many of the pregnant females who arrive from now on will feel the effects of the crowded harems. Just finding a spot on the beach can be difficult. Late arrivals tend to be younger, inexperienced mothers, and they're often forced to raise their pups along the edges of the harems, nearer to the sneaker bulls and the sea. A position on the outskirts is fraught with danger. This mother and pup are going to find this out the hard way. Although the surf is not big, she calls out frantically after a wave has washed her young and helpless pup down the beach. As the pup gets washed even further out, she tries in vain to push it back towards shore. But away from the harem, she's an easy target for the sneaker bulls. They won't let her reach her pup. The sneakers are relentless, and the pup drowns just feet from shore. Finally, the alpha bull gets in the last word. But that's little comfort for a distraught mother. Her calls to her pup will go unanswered. A few late females are pupping throughout the first week of February. But soon there's more moms leaving than arriving, and fewer females mean more and more weaners. But the beach is still crowded, and this can be a difficult time for the little guys. They're hungry, and they want mom. But mom left, and searching around the harem for her can be risky business. Aggressive mothers are everywhere. Eventually, most weaners accept their fate and leave the harem, but not always. This wiener hit the jackpot by finding a new mom. He'll continue to nurse and grow abnormally large, and soon become known as a super wiener. Multiple births among elephant seals are exceedingly rare, but adoptions are not. It's not uncommon to see a single mom with 2 or 3 pups. But this is not a good situation, since a mother only has enough milk to nurse 1 pup. By adopting another, she puts all the pups in jeopardy. But if a mother has lost her pup, she may be willing to adopt another pup. Which is what happened for this lucky wiener. He's nearly as big as mom, and he may weigh up to 600 pounds by the time she leaves. For the rest of the weaners, the danger outside the harem lies with marauding bulls. So usually, the only safe place to go is inland, if there's room. Up the bluffs, over the dunes, through the trees, by the highway. If they can get there, they will. The further away from the busy adults, the better. The weaners will tend to congregate together in groups called Wiener Pods. These pods can grow quite large and provide a good measure of protection. Wiener pods also provide the first chances at social interaction with other seals besides their mothers. In the young wiener pods, the boys are already fighting, getting a head start on their chest shield, and they all shed off their fuzzy black baby fur, revealing a smooth silver adult coat underneath. A large number of females leaving also means a large number of females are in estrus, and increased responsibilities for the alpha bull. Not only must he mate with each female in the harem, often several times, but also the ratio of males to females is increasing, and so is the competition. It's a great test of stamina for the alpha, who has gone without food for 2 months already. If the bull arrived at the colony at the right time, he should be able to withstand these challenges and maintain his alpha status. A bull that arrives too early in the season runs the risk of running out of gas and being deposed as the dominant male before all the females leave. These are probably not the things that are foremost in a female's mind as she prepares to depart the colony. She certainly has her own problems to worry about. She may be only 40 yards from the water, but they may be the longest 40 yards she ever crosses. With little warning, a skinny and exhausted mother will simply bolt towards the water with surprising suddenness. In a matter of seconds, it seems as if the entire lower part of the beach is moving towards her. Every sneaker in the vicinity is rushing in her direction in hopes of mating. This could be their best chance. A female will often have to mate 3 or 4 times before she reaches the water, a task that is dangerous and can take hours, unless she's lucky. In smaller harems, or before very many females are in estrus, an alpha bull will sometimes escort a female to the water's edge, allowing her a graceful exit. By the end of the month, most of the females have gone. But unexpectedly, an extremely late female arrives and gives birth. She is abnormally late. The harem on this part of the beach is already gone, and only weaners and bulls remain. She's in for a rough ride. She's constantly bombarded by aggressive weaners trying to steal some milk. She chases most of them off, but not all. And, being the only female on the beach, she and her pup are constantly harassed by several different bulls. Without the harem and an established male hierarchy in place, she has little chance of successfully raising her pup. Many changes take place at the colony in March. All the remaining mature animals will leave, and the elephant seal seasons will slowly begin to change. The first month of an elephant seal's life is spent nursing. The second month is spent sleeping and playing with friends in huge, wiggling piles. For now, the weaners rule the beach. During this time, baby fat is being converted to muscle, and the wiener slowly transforms from a basketball into a more mobile seal shape. If big surf pounds the colony now, even though the weaners aren't good swimmers, they're buoyant and strong enough to get back to shore. The big waves are just a nuisance, although they are expending energy they'd probably just as soon save for later. But there's always plenty of time for exploring their exciting new world. About 3 to 4 weeks after its mother leaves, a wiener will make its first tentative trips to the shoreline to learn to swim. Within days, the seals are swimming comfortably and soon discover there's a second world to explore. The wieners spend more and more time in the water with each passing day. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, they'll learn important skills that will prepare them for their first migration. Even so, they still won't venture very far from shore. Sometimes they'll explore other beaches up or down the colony, but they'll still stay within the near-shore tide pools and kelp beds. While the wieners are enjoying their time in the water, another visitor returns to the colony. Very young 1- and 2-year-old elephant seals begin hauling out, marking the start of the long molting season. Each seal will haul out once a year for 3 or 4 weeks for the annual process of shedding the top layer of skin and fur. It's the immature animals who show up first to grudgingly share the beach with the wieners. These early arrivals might find themselves in competition for beach space with the remaining bulls as well. They're still eager to express their dominance over the young molters. By the middle of the month, only one mother and pup pair remains in the entire colony. She is an estrus and mating, and she'll probably leave today. By now, the bulls have lost over 1/3 of their body weight and are only shells of their former selves. And with no more females on the beach, there's no reason to stay. They'll all be gone by the end of the month. Once they disappear into the depths, elephant seals live a mostly solitary existence far out to sea in a continual search for schools of squid and fish. They're so rarely seen outside of their haul-out colonies, it wasn't even known where they went until modern technology unraveled the mystery starting in the 1970s. As biologists perfected an array of sophisticated electronic tracking and recording devices, the information they recovered began to tell the story of an unprecedented migration. The seals depart the colony, heading directly for deep pelagic waters before making a right turn. The males tend to stay close to the continental shelf and swim far to the north, eventually reaching as far as the eastern Aleutian Island chain. Females won't normally go further than about 55 degrees north latitude, off the coast of British Columbia, but will head far to the west, sometimes further west than the Hawaiian Islands. Why males and females disperse into 2 different areas is not fully understood, but the bountiful food supply in the cold, nutrient-rich waters of the northeastern Pacific is the reason for these great migrations. The biologists were amazed by where the seals went after the breeding season, but it wasn't the most astounding discovery they made.
These are animals that not only come and make a large migration once a year, but they make the same migration twice a year. Each of these long swims may take them 20 or more days, and a round-trip migration is about 7,000 to 9,000 miles. This is phenomenal, but you multiply it, 14,000, 18,000 miles. This is one of the longest migrations for any mammal.
The elephant seal is one of the only known mammals to complete an annual double migration. The males will spend about 8 months of the year at sea, with each migration lasting 4 months. The female will spend a total of 10 months at sea, with 2 unequal migrations lasting 2 months after the breeding season and 8 months after the molt. While most of the mature animals are migrating towards rich feeding grounds, Wiener Swimming School is in full swing, and the daily routine is becoming fairly predictable. The cool hours of the morning and late evening are spent in the water, while the middle of the day is spent up on the beach sleeping. After nap time, several Wieners will head for the water. The sight of their beach mates having fun is too much to handle, and they all rush to join in. Soon the beach is empty, and hundreds of seals are frolicking in the shallow water. It's easy to see why they love the beaches here at Piedras Blancas. Just offshore, large waves are driving down the coast, whipped up by a violent spring gale. But inside the protective coves downwind of the point, the waters are calm and serene, just perfect for a late afternoon swim. Life is good. By mid-April, hundreds of newly arrived molters have rapidly changed the complexion of the beach again. The temperament on the sand is quite a bit different than during the breeding season, as these young seals happily lay on top of one another in huge piles of blubber. Any squabbles that break out over the most comfortable spots don't last long. This big bull seems to have forgotten he's supposed to be migrating, much to the displeasure of his squished companions. At an age of about 3.5 months, hunger pains the Wieners probably can't ignore any longer finally signal an end to their stay on the beach. They've lost at least 20% of their mass since weaning and must learn to forage on their own. Fortunately, this departure coincides with strong spring winds that cause the cold, upwelled water off the west coast to bloom with abundance. Even so, the Wieners are departing on the most dangerous part of their lives, their first migration.
Within days after departing, they're able to make 20-minute dives. They're able to dive to 250 meters. But they've got to figure out how to catch prey. They've got to figure out where we're supposed to go. Evidently, it's got to be hardwired. But they lead a hard life. This first 4 to 6 month migration away from the rookery of their birth, we're only going to see about 50% return in an average year. Some years we'll see 20% return. Some years we'll see 70% return. If they make it, they're doing really well, and they're probably well on their way to being able to reach adulthood.
It's not known why the young seals have such trouble surviving this early migration, but a danger faced by both young and old seals alike is a run-in with a couple of very formidable predators, the orca and the great white shark.
Off the central west coast here, California in particular, it appears that the white shark season is primarily in the fall and winter, and it seems to most closely coincide with the shoreward migration of the northern elephant seals. And the sharks aggregate in relatively large numbers at that time around the rookeries. We don't know where they go or come from. In the meanwhile, Bernie LaBeouf and other people's studies indicate that there's a real high mortality among young elephant seals. A bunch of them leave the island and very few return, so a lot of the attrition could be happening offshore. And so we really don't know about that. But it is suspected that perhaps maybe a portion of the adult population may actually shadow that population of elephant seals, perhaps even to the open high ocean, and may be taking a lot of them offshore. If you ever looked at the skull of a northern elephant seal, it's every bit as much impressive as a North American bear. You know, big fangs, That's interesting because to find an equivalent relationship between a white shark and, say, a northern elephant seal, you'd have to go back, quite a ways, to grizzly bears, maybe, T-Rex, an animal that when it gets hungry goes looking for other predators to feed on. Elephant seals, while they are the victim in this white shark elephant seal scenario, it should be appreciated that they are themselves very impressive as a predator. The population of northern elephant seals are definitely and obviously increasing. So one of the questions arising from that is like, well, are we seeing a corresponding increase in white shark populations? No one really knows that. It's my impression that it wouldn't really affect the white shark population in terms of more numbers. It may increase the range of white sharks and maybe have them what's called recruitment, going into different areas that formerly weren't productive hunting grounds and are again now. And so that may actually disperse the population somewhat. It's really too early in the studies to tell. But however, at this point, there's nothing to suggest an increase in white shark population. There are two types of orcas, perhaps more. There's the resident fish-eating type of orca, like Free Willy, that lives up in the British Northwest, and then there's the rogue or transient type of orca, which occurs more in the southern central California waters. In South America, there's certain sites where orcas are known to frequently come near shore, in fact, beach themselves while feeding on southern elephant seals and fur seals, things like this. But in our area off of California, most of the orca predation on elephant seals, which we have observed, is occurring offshore. I would say that the orcas and the white sharks are so effective as predators, they don't really need the elephant seal, say, as a primary food item. They're just very handy, and I don't think they have much of an effect overall on the pinniped population in general, let alone the elephant seals. Both are amazingly impressive predators in their own rights, although obviously I would say the orcas would have the upper hand and probably have the last word in that they individually are every bit as much a predator as the shark, and yet they travel in groups and work in a kind of a team manner that I think would eclipse anything that the shark might have in its bag of tricks. I think they are probably, like I say, the final word as apex predators on the ocean. Barring bipedal fire-using primates, humans, which of course ruin the curve with their weapons and technology and stuff.
The elephant seals are a new addition to the nearshore waters around Piedras Blancas. But there has always been a bountiful supply of other types of pinnipeds and marine mammals in the area. Their most closely related neighbor is the harbor seal, but their lifestyles could hardly be more different. Their smaller size, spotted coats that range in color from black to gray to tan or brown, and bushy white whiskers distinguish them from elephant seals. Harbor seals are a year-round local resident and do not migrate. Somewhat wary, they prefer to haul out on inaccessible rocks just offshore that are exposed at low tide, scattering into the water at the slightest sign of an intruder. They also take a different approach when it comes to pupping time, which at Piedras Blancas coincides with the elephant seal Wiener departure in the middle of spring. A harbor seal pup is able to swim as soon as it's born and can get around by clinging onto its mother's back, two distinct advantages over the helplessness of an elephant seal pup. The origin of the pinnipeds is somewhat controversial, but harbor seals and elephant seals are both considered to be true seals, or earless seals, as members of the Phocid family. Earless seals are thought to have evolved from an otter-like land mammal that returned to the sea some 25 million years ago. On the other side of this coin are the eared seals, or the Otariid family. These animals are thought to have evolved around the same time from a bear-like creature. The fact that both eared and earless seals look somewhat similar and yet are unrelated is attributed to adapting to the demands of a similar environment, an evolutionary process known as convergence. The local and common eared resident at Piedras Blancas is the California sea lion. Unlike harbor seals, which make nearly no sound, sea lions are often loud and boisterous, barking at each other over females and the best spot to sit. Their powerful front flippers and opposable rear flippers allow them to actually walk. a trait that enables them to climb and colonize the large rocks offshore, a domain beyond the reach of true seals. Sea lions feed and haul out around Piedras Blancas, but migrate several hundred miles to the south to breed. In other areas, sea lions can have a tendency to congregate near easy food sources, like at Pier 39 in San Francisco and in Monterey Bay. Both harbor seals and California sea lions have a reputation for competing for food with local fishermen, sometimes stealing salmon and other fish off their lines. This interaction with human activities has put the issues of marine mammal protection and possibly overprotection under a microscope. In contrast, elephant seals have not caused this kind of controversy. Their disappearance into distant, inhospitable waters to feed takes them out of direct competition with other local marine mammals and man, a fact that no doubt contributed to their remarkable comeback. Elephant seals share the dubious distinction of having been hunted to the brink of extinction with another of their neighbors. The calm coves and thick kelp forests off Piedras Blancas are a favorite habitat of the California sea otter. One or two can often be seen diving and playing only a few yards from shore. They also spend hours grooming their delicate fur, helping to maintain its insulating properties. Having very little blubber, they can die from hypothermia within minutes if their fur gets soiled. Here, a mother shows her pup the intricacies of grooming, while curious elephant seals look on. Another price sea otters pay for being the smallest marine mammal in the world is they have to eat nearly a quarter of their body weight a day to keep warm in the cool 55-degree water, a fact that has caused quite a rift between the otters and commercial fishermen. But California's sea otters have not recovered nearly as well as the elephant seal. After decades of struggling to a population of barely over 2,000 animals total, they're still listed as a threatened species, and for unknown reasons, their numbers have actually been declining in recent years. By May, the mature females are returning from their short spring migrations to join the large number of immature molters. The beach is jam-packed. Sometime in the middle of the month is the peak of the molt, when the largest numbers of seals of the year are hauled out. Every mammal goes through the process of shedding their skin or fur, but most do it gradually and unnoticeably, maybe one hair at a time. That's not the way elephant seals do it. Instead, during their 4-week haul-out, they go through what's known as a catastrophic molt, shedding their fur along with the first layer of skin, all within about 10 days. This young male is showing off his shiny new coat. The different color of animals on the beach is merely an indication of how far along in this process each seal is. The seals return to haul out at the rookery because if the molt occurred at sea, the seals would likely have trouble maintaining their proper body temperature. While foraging in water as cold as 39 degrees, they can shunt their blood away from their skin and non-vital organs in order to maintain their core body temperature. But the warmer temperatures up on the beach allow full blood circulation to the seal's skin, stimulating a rapid growth of the new layer of fur. In fact, the seals sometimes struggle to keep cool on warm sunny days. A favorite pastime is to throw sand on their backs, an activity they start at an early age. When this doesn't work, they'll head for the wet sand to cool off. The seals can be a pretty sorry sight during the middle of this process. A common question for the docents on the bluff is whether the seals are diseased or even alive at all. This is not a surprising reaction considering how few places elephant seals can be observed and considering their unusual sleeping behavior. And elephant seals sleep a lot. While they're at sea, They sleep underwater while holding their breath, a condition known as sleep apnea. And they do the same thing on land. Typically, they'll fall asleep for between 10 and 20 minutes at a time. You can often hear them waking up when they have to forcefully blow open their breathing airways. Secretions of fluid keep the sand from irritating their eyes, and the lack of tear ducts makes it appear as though they're crying. Well, it's no wonder someone might mistake a motionless, molting, crying, half-buried seal with foam coming out of its nose as being diseased. But don't worry, it's just typical elephant seal behavior. And with huge eyes that help them locate prey in the darkest depths, their behavior doesn't change much after the sun sets. In the molting season or the breeding season, there's just as much going on at night as in the day. Throughout the spring, many tourists are surprised to find out that these are, in fact, elephant seals, since the only seals on the beach are immature animals and females, which are both relatively small and lack the bull's distinguishing nose. But by the end of June, no more females are arriving, and the first of the larger, mature males begin hauling out for their turn at molting. And the difference in the size of the animals lying on the beach is instantly noticeable. As the females gradually depart on their long summer and fall migration, they're leaving with more than just a new coat of fur.
The elephant seal reproductive system is such that they come together as a unit, a reproductive unit, once a year. And there's a synchrony in the males and the females. And they breed, but their gestation period isn't a full year. They, as well as several other mammals, utilize the strategy of delayed implantation. Delayed implantation is you get initial fertilization of the egg, and the blastocyst just holds as a very small multicellular structure that does not attach to the uterine wall until it receives a hormonal burst. With elephant seals, we believe that this hormonal burst is given after the molt. You then start getting development of the fetus.
The seal population at Piedras Blancas declines radically in July as the last of the female molters are replaced with a smaller number of mature bulls. Compared to the last time these bulls met, they're downright chummy. While the biggest bulls still get their way, there's no clearly defined dominant structure. Their mock fights are a favorite activity, but at this time of year they rarely draw blood. Seeing these giant animals gently frolicking in waist-deep water belies one of their most impressive adaptations, the incomprehensible ability to dive nearly a mile beneath the surface. Only one other mammal can share these crushing depths with the elephant seal, the huge sperm whale. But even the sperm whale can't match the elephant seal's non-stop diving schedule that continues without rest, day and night, week after week, for their entire foraging migration. They rarely spend more than 2 to 3 minutes at the surface between dives, and they can stay under for up to 2 hours. This non-stop diving activity is an unparalleled feat, the mechanics of which are not fully understood.
We were flabbergasted 15 years ago when we put the first time depth recorders on elephant seals and discovered that they're not only diving all of the time, but that they're diving so deeply. We'll see these patterns in which they're diving to between 600 and 800 meters, and then they come up to the surface, and then 600 to 800 meters, and foraging. Periodically, we get these absolutely phenomenal dives that they go beyond the scale of the first instruments that we had. Now we typically send them out with instruments rated to 2,000 meters, and our deepest dives are 1,615 meters by both males and females. This is longer than several Empire State Buildings, about 3 of them, as a matter of fact, stacked one on top of another. Why do they dive so deep? We don't really know. The elephant seals put together differently than we are. For one, elephant seals have 3 times the volume that we have of blood. Ours is about 7% of body weight, theirs is about 21%. They also have a much greater density of packed cells, of red blood cells in their blood than we do. Secondly, they have a pigment in the muscle tissue that takes up oxygen even more willingly than hemoglobin, and that's myoglobin. To me, what's most surprising is that when they do take these deep dives, that it doesn't look like it takes much effort. As soon as they start their dive, their heart rate starts dropping very, very rapidly from 80 to 60 to 50 into the 40 range, and then generally is in the range of 28 to about 45 beats per minute. We've actually have periods where the instruments have recorded 0 to 2 beats over a 3-minute period. This is amazing. We didn't believe the instruments at first. We felt, no, there's something wrong with our counters. Yes, the instruments were correct. In comparison, you see an elephant seal sleeping on the beach, it's breathing faster, it's using more energy than the elephant seal that is swimming, that is diving. The ramifications of this are they're saving energy while diving. They dive all the time, so they're consolidating energy while they have the opportunity to forage. These animals are demonstrating amazing physiological control over their body.
The biggest bulls molt in August, and sometime near the end of the month, the first yearlings will come back from their successful first migration. It's a time of contrast as the beach has the biggest bulls and tiny yearlings, but no mid-sized animals. The docents have a difficult time explaining that these yearlings are not pups, but they've been on their own since winter, and the big bulls on the beach are not their fathers. These new arrivals are a little early and may have had a difficult time foraging or are the runts of the year. The big bulls decrease in number towards the end of the month until there's only one big guy left. Then, they're gone. The beach now belongs to the yearlings. The elephant seal population at Piedras Blancas will be at its lowest through the month of September. Towards the end of the month and into October, many young 2- and 3-year-old animals will join the yearlings for the season known as the fall rest. This is the immature seal's substitute for the breeding season. For now, they're simply resting and having fun. As these younger animals age, their migration and haul-out schedules will gradually shift later in the year until they mesh with the typical mature breeding and molting schedule. During the fall rest, there are still low numbers of seals at the colony, and they'll normally bunch together on the beaches near the lighthouse. For now, the beaches by the parking lot are totally empty, a snapshot of how things used to be. But by late October, the gulls are looking out to sea again, waiting to welcome another season of the amazing elephant seal.